All right. Well, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar to learn about the dynamics of security and tech solution trends. I'm thrilled to have you all join us as we delve into this trending topic. We're going to allow a few minutes for some other participants to join. We will be start sharp at 12:02. In the meantime, my name is Aileen Zorilla, and I'm the Business Development Manager for the Broward region here at Castle Group, and I'll be your host for this session. And in our panel of experts, we have James Shoemaker, the Executive Vice President at Castle Group, Joel Leffler, Senior Vice President at Marksman Security, and Nick Morat, Senior Account Executive at Titan Security. Right. Hey. Hello, everyone, again, for those that joined a few minutes after. Throughout this webinar, our panel of experts will provide an insightful overview of the role of security companies, expectations, current trends in the marketplace, and explore new tech solution strategies available out there. Before we kick off our discussion, I invite you to actively engage by asking questions. In the screen, you will see how to navigate the tool to ask your questions in the dialog box. And to ensure we make the most of everyone's time, we'll address most of the questions at the end of the session. Thank you all for your participation and understanding. And without further ado, I turn it over to our panelists. But first, why don't you all take a moment and introduce yourselves for our audience? Joel?
Yeah, hello. How are you doing? Good afternoon. I'm Joel Leffler. I'm Senior VP with Marksman Titan Security Group. I've been working in the security industry since 1989. Prior to Marksman, I was an owner, sold my company in 2014. That's how I came over to Marksman. Okay, I apologize. So I'll give you a little bit. I'm sorry, I get distracted for a second. Marksman Security. So to give you some backdrop on Marksman Security, we were established in 2003, and over our 20 years, we have expanded to over 20 markets nationally. In the very beginning until today, in the South Florida market, Marksman's primary vertical market is residential security services for HOAs, condominiums. We have expanded over the years to many different vertical markets. We actually service many Fortune 100 companies nationwide that trust us with their services like Meta, Facebook, Texas Instruments, Samsung, Marathon Oil, Chick-fil-A, which everybody stops at from time to time. Good chicken sandwich. But we recently merged with Titan Security Group, forming the Marksman Titan Security Group, which increased our footprint to better support our customers, but also made us a full integrator of technology to provide the best services and solutions to our clients here in South Florida and across the country.
Thank you very much, Joel. What about you, Nick?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Moreau. I'm the Senior Account Executive at Titan Security Group, which is now Marksman Titan Security Group, as Joel introduced. I've been with the company just about 6 months, but I'm not new to the industry. I've been in the security integration industry for a little over 13 years now. So I've worked with a lot of national accounts, traveled across different states to support various different global customers. Have a lot of experience in multifamily, residential, high-end commercial Class A buildings. Our focus is high-level security integration of technology, such as video surveillance, access control, intercom systems. And I'll be going over some of that a little bit in more detail further in this webinar.
Thank you. James, you can take it away now.
Thanks, Aileen, and thanks, Joel and Nick. So my name is James Shoemaker. I'm the Executive Vice President at Castle Group. Most of you know Castle Group that's participating in our webinar here. We do a number of them each and every month. But for those that aren't, Castle Group is one of the largest association management companies in the state of Florida. We manage over 500 communities. We do that with our dedicated 3,000 plus teammates now. And we've been doing that for over 40 years. So really excited to be here, excited for our panel. I think we've got a great topic and discussion. So let's just get right into it. And again, as Aileen mentioned, please feel free, who's participating in this webinar, to type in your questions in the chat box. We'll get to some of them throughout, some of them at the end based upon time. And again, very excited to be here. I think this is, I'm excited because I know, just being in the association management field and industry, sometimes security and technology gets a little bit glanced over, meaning that, as you can probably well attest to, Joel, it's much more than who's manning the gates and how long is the visitor line, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, but those are just one and some of the pain points that we go through, and we do talk about security. But I think, for today, taking a deeper dive into both how security, those provisions, technology, the integration, implementation of it, and really how those trends are occurring. How is it changing? What is changing? What's new to come for our associations? I think ultimately the goal here today is just to provide some more awareness, some visibility, and some thought leadership to our guests and registrants on better insights to this space. So with that, why don't we just kind of get into a few of the things that we have as topics. And Joel, I know you as an executive at Marksman, you've got a little bit of an overview of course, of your security company, but the different types of functions that we offer. There's manned staffed gates, and there's access control, which is, could be digital or card. There's a lot of different types of provisions for security. And I think your ability to maybe give us some insight to that is helpful to start the dialogue. And so, if you don't mind, I've got a few topics and questions that I'll ask to you, and you can bounce off of each other with you and Nick, but specifically to you, Joel. Really, how has technology changed, just in terms of more the traditional security guards in our environment today? If you look back 5, 10, 15 years to present day and future, what's really changed right now in the role of those security guards as you see it?
Well, security is a very broad and encompassing word. Most of your HOAs and condominiums, you have to understand the difference between actual access control and security services. By saying that, to answer your question, first of all, it's the evolution, the revolutionary technology that is constantly evolving, which Nick will speak about a little bit later on. When you're talking access control, like for most of your gated communities, your high-rise condominiums, or just about everything, the main focus points are always the gate, the lobby, correct? Right? Everybody agrees with that. So that's primary function of those security officers is access control. Now, that being said, now how do you secure the rest of the premises? How do you secure the interior of the property, the exterior of the property? Over the years ago, go back on your question, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have the technology we have nowadays. The applications, everything is app driven. So a lot of the technology that Nick is going to talk about is through applications also to monitor our systems. So when I go back to access control being the main function, how do you secure the rest of the property? Some companies, some associations contract roving security officers. That still doesn't give you full protection of your community. Think about if the roving security officer is at point A and something takes place at point Z, how does he know that? He cannot be in one place 100% of the time. It's just not going to happen. It's humanly impossible. So what do? That's where we're going to talk about technology later is incorporating the AI cameras and the technology out there to benefit and better protect the premises. There are certain ways that you could do it. This has been a big focal point with a lot of our communities is how do we do what I just talked about in the 5th floor or the 1st floor, the amenities. Maybe you have a very porous community where anybody could walk in on your property. What do? We have, which I'll tell you about, not a case study, but an actual success story that we had when we first started implementing AI cameras and so forth, is that putting these AI cameras, you could have them monitored. If you don't have any roving officers, you can monitor them from the lobby, as we all know. The AI cameras, they're all activity driven. You could set them up that detect a human being, to detect a cat. It's not like years ago where every single activity was driving an alarm, which led security officers to become complacent because they were always false alarms. So nowadays you're able to set it up to human size, so it doesn't have to go off every time a cat or a raccoon enters into there. And this could be monitored from the lobby, in a kiosk, however you want to do it on the computer. When there's communities that implement a roving security officer, let's say they don't have a front desk, they don't have a gatehouse, who monitors the cameras was always a big issue. Who's handling the cameras, right? So nowadays with the AI cameras and the technology and the apps, what I was talking about earlier is that your smart device could have the app on it that is tied to all your cameras. So when there is motion or act, John is at point A, but something's at point Z, he could automatically report to that area and look into the issue, call the police, whatever it needs to be done at that point. But before we had all this technology, it was just like, it was hit or miss. Watch the security officer go by. No, he's got to go to point A. Let's go to point Z and enter the property through that way. Take something from point M, because we know he's doing his patrols on the other end of the property or on the second floor of the building, and we're entering on the first floor or some other way. There's a lot of entry points on buildings. When people want to get in, they're going to get in. It's easy to learn what a security officer is doing by just monitoring and watching them if they don't have all the systems in place. We do use technology to set up tours for our security officers, which are meant to be a guide to take them to all the areas. We don't require them to, let's say if you have 40 points that they need to go to hit them all in 1 hour. And why don't we say they have to hit them all in 1 hour? Because if they race from point A to point B to get their rounds done, they basically are not paying attention to their surroundings. So we set it up differently. Each one of our points, we're able to program tutorials in them. So if there's certain things that says the clubhouse has to be locked up at a certain time, when he walks past, it's an RFI reader. When he walks past, an alert comes up on his phone, tells him what to do. It's foolproof. It can't be, security officers can't go in there and try to beat the system. It's impossible to beat it versus your old systems that used to be used with even QR codes or just metal points. It was easy to replicate those and then go sit in a corner and do them. So the patrols, so I'm going to get back to what would happen, like I said. So I'm going to go to a case, what happened with one of our communities in the Parkland area. James is probably familiar with this property. We had people coming in on the golf course in certain areas that golf course isn't in use anymore. So, and we determined an area where these people were coming in on the property through this one section, right? We were able to tell because of footprints in the trails that were made, but we cannot be there 24/7, and it becomes cost prohibitive to take one of your officers and keep him there and then hire 2 more to do what he was supposed to be doing. So we put in the cameras. Remember, these are remote areas. This is what's great about cameras nowadays. Yes, you have Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi has distance and challenges also. What we used was over the air, meaning that, the cameras were placed. We were able to relocate them, put them high up in a tree, put them on a pole. We did not have to keep them in the same spot, and they worked over the air just like a cellular phone. So first night that these cameras were put in, and I love talking about this because it was at our suggestion that this was implemented. The very first night, the applications were on the rover's phone, the director of security, and we also share with the Broward sheriff's officers in that district. Because James, it's pretty slow out there for the sheriffs at night. So, but they want to have a camera feed wherever possible and be able to respond to teams quickly. So at about, I think it was 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, the alert goes off, human size, not a raccoon, because there are a lot of raccoons, bobcats, and even coyotes out there. So what happened was when it went off, went to the director's phone, it had already went to the rover's phone, BSO was alerted. All of them were able to respond to that same sector immediately, and those people were apprehended. They were cornered and apprehended by the BSO. Without that technology, they would have been continuing to walk through the community, not breaking windows. As we know, it's not smash and grabs, it's just people who are complacent with leaving their doors unlocked or keys in their cars because they're under the false assumption that they're in a secured community. Once again, I want to go back to most of your gated communities are only access control. What happens on the property is not in the control of that guy who's at the gate. So implementing this technology with the type of cameras what Nick will go into later on, and the access control programs that are used to facilitate guests through the apps that residents have, it also it leads to better security because the residents are going to be able to know who's coming on their properties, they're alerted and so forth. And it makes our job a lot easier having the proper technology at the gatehouses as well. So that's technology is a huge part. And I implore anyone who has not looked into it to get an assessment and have it done. You gotta understand the roles of security officers and so forth and what they can actually do for your property. Because going back on what I said is that we don't secure residents from residents. We don't from kids stealing from their neighbors or from people walking on areas that we do not control. It's once again, access control. I'd like to also speak to another important factor that has been a struggle here in the South Florida market and other markets is the recruitment of employees, understanding how important the wages play in recruiting into the proper qualified employee. Doesn't just mean, you got a pay rate and you're going to hire anybody who walks through the door. It's very, very important. The recruitment plays a critical role on the success of any security program. And going into that, the number one factor that's going to attract people is your wage. Okay, this bottom line, there's no way around it. If I'm an employee looking for a position, a new position, I'm automatically calling the highest wage position I see right away. It's not going to trickle down to the second or third company. If they're a good qualified employee, they're going to get hired. With that being said, the wage is very important. What keeps employees is benefits. What companies offer benefits like Marksman, we offer a full health benefit, a full cafeteria plan from life insurance, 401ks, even insurance for your pets. We consider our benefits an anchoring tool. Okay. What's key about when I talk about the wages and the benefits that help keep the people, another important factor is in the selection process, once you've, of course, selected the proper individual, is the onboarding. This is something that is overlooked by a lot of companies, not only in our industry, but a lot of industries, is that you need a structured onboarding program. It's very important. The turnover in our industry is over 150%. Ours is much lower due to we do employ a structured onboarding program. What do I mean by a structured onboarding program? In our industry, and I keep saying our industry, is that the first 30 days is critical. That's where we have the highest turnover rate. And what we do with our structured onboarding program for the first 30 days of that employment of that individual is they are in constant communication. The day of training completed, the first day they show up, the 5th day, the 15th, and the 30th day. We coach and support them through the first 30 days to make sure that they're going to be successful. And studies have shown that companies that do use a structured onboarding program, the retention rate goes up by 67%. So, I mean, there's a lot of critical factors once again, is going back to that, the wages that are offered. It's not just about being competitive in your wages. You need to be able to select. And job seekers, once again, I'm saying what I said before, are going to look for the highest dollar amount. Okay. But for a company to keep them and for them to be successful, you have to have a structured onboarding program. You need to support the people. You got to offer benefits. You got to offer a career path for the individuals. Okay. Security is no longer that transient position that it used to be 20, 30 years ago when it was just retirees, college students, people out of the Army. This is a career for a lot of people nowadays. And if you can offer a career advancement in a company like Marksman that's constantly growing, increasing our partnerships, people will excel at their jobs. And I'm going to go back to supporting them is very, very important and critical.
That's a great point, Joe. I appreciate you hitting on it. It's a really important point when you talked about market rates and affordability and the wages, and we're all in the same arena here. You know, talent is hard to come by. When you find it, you have to invest in them. You have to onboard them properly. You have to have check-ins, and you have to really engage the employee, whether it be security, technology, association management. It's really critical about some of those elements you discuss. And at the end of the day, as long as you're at market rates or above, you're going to have a better chance of finding talent. So that's good to hear. I'm going to ask we move this over. I'd like to get a little bit of the technology pieces. And Nick, I know that you've got some areas that you can touch upon as it relates to technology solution trends. You know, how software comes into play. I'm sure that we can fill in hours to talk about technology in this space, but I think what's valuable for us and for the participants on this webinar is really understanding a little bit more about the technology pieces as it relates to cameras and artificial intelligence and kind of the makeup of what associations should be looking at for technology, hardware, software. So you want to speak a little bit to, you know, kind of those systems that are out there and some of the risk mitigators and gaps that you address through technology?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went ahead and shared my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, great.
Yeah. Thank you, James. First, I want to thank the Castle Group for organizing this webinar. I do appreciate being invited to present here today. I want to give a little background on Titan Electronics first. We've been in business since 1994, headquartered out of Chicago, Illinois. For over 3 decades, we've focused on being a boutique security integrator as well as a security guard service provider. Our holistic approach combines traditional security staffing with cutting-edge technology. So we integrate efficient security solutions from one single source. So my approach or our approach is a little bit consultative. We make sure that we design and implement security solutions based on the individual customer needs. No two buildings are alike. No two customers are alike. Okay. That being said, we bring that service from 30 years of experience with a local factor. I'm actually a South Florida native. I work out of the Miami office. We do have offices throughout the state of Florida. So I support a team of local technicians and project managers so we can support you in any part of the state. We do actually have a footprint now in 30 different states, but I know that this webinar and our focus here today is based on South Florida as a whole. So based on that, we can service your sites 24/7 with our team of certified technicians, project managers. And one of the things that sets Titan apart from the competition is we have our own tier 1 and tier 2 IT engineers on staff. What does that really mean? Most competitors, most integrators, when they get stuck or hung up on something, whether it be troubleshooting an active system or implementing a new deployment, they usually have to look towards the manufacturer for support. We do that a lot in-house. So we can actually remote in, program something that needs to be programmed, get it live and operating quickly and efficiently. So that's one of the things I wanted to touch on. So we are essentially a systems integrator, and we have access to pretty much all the partners in the business. what I have here on the screen is just a small snippet of who we've partnered with and who we use. This is not a complete list of everybody that we do have access to. It's just a quick sample that we like to go with best-in-class technology and use trusted partners depending on the solution. Let's talk a little bit about access control, as Joel was leading into. So access control in the sense of technology, there's two different varieties, two different flavors, if you want to call it that. Traditionally, access control has not changed for many, many years, in the sense where you typically had door hardware, card readers, locks, and you had controllers locked in a secure closet or room on site, which is then managed by software on a server. This is a typical on-premises design. Today, we're seeing a big trend in technology and growth in cloud-based access control, where you manage it via an application or web browser. The benefit of this is that you don't have to manage the server on site and worry about maintenance yourself. It does come with additional licensing fees and costs, but the benefits usually outweigh those cons a lot. For example, in a building with multi-tenants, multiple floors, tenant has multiple floors, and you want to give them access to those floors. With a cloud-based access control system, it's very easy to segregate those floors for that tenant, and you can even give them access so that they can manage their own access control, even though it's a base building managed system. So it starts to change the dynamic so that the property manager in a building doesn't have to do all the day-to-day management for that access control for every single tenant. They can do the base building and worry about that and let the tenants manage their sectioned off parts. So of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all application. So you do have large global customers that do want to have on-premises access control that's server-based. And that's typically when they have multiple sites in multiple states in the country. Just a couple of examples for some of our customers here that we have in South Florida. For both applications, we did an on-premise access control system and video management solution for a building in a downtown area. We implemented destination dispatch and a tenant engagement app for this one client. And on the other example, in the West Palm area, we're implementing a fully cloud-based platform where it's going to be fully cloud-based access control and cameras with visitor management implemented all into one platform, so that the management can have access to be able to add or delete users as needed, open up a door remotely from their app. So it's a very streamlined application. So let's talk a little bit about credentials when it comes to access control. I'm sure you're all familiar with traditional credentials such as hard cards, key fobs that are on a keychain, right? We're seeing a trend with mobile credentials. It's fairly new, and the biggest trend is in NFC, or near field connection. So a lot of our customers are gravitating towards using mobile credentials with these new card readers that have this technology built in. It's much more secure. It's a great user experience. And let's face it, nobody wants to carry a badge if they don't have to wear it as an ID. So if you're in a community, you don't have to walk around with your keys because you always have your phone, your smart device on you. So today we're able to integrate with Apple Wallet and Google Wallet into your smartphone devices or your wearables like a smartwatch. So there's a lot of benefits to this, and I want to talk about that. If you lose your access card, your key fob, let's say you dropped it somewhere, or you just forgot it at your desk somewhere. You may not realize that you left it until a couple days later when you try to get back in the building, right? Or back into the property. You're not going to go into a panic if you lose it right away. Now, if you are using your phone as a mobile credential and you lose your phone, you're gonna figure out real quickly that you're missing something important that's kind of tied to you every single minute. So number one, it's much more secure in that sense. And number two, it's also an encrypted communication, so it can't be copied. So there's a lot of benefits in mobile credentials. Go to the next slide. Let me talk a little bit about biometrics. Biometrics, we can apply biometrics with fingerprint readers, scanners. One of the implementations we did for one of our customers in downtown Chicago was with the high-speed turnstiles. These are basically readers that allow you to swipe your fingers in front of it, so you can do a two-factor authentication. So you could put your credential, whether it be a mobile credential from your phone or wearable device, but then you're also authenticating that you are the one that belongs in the building by swiping your hand over these high-speed readers. It's a touch-less design, so you don't have to sit there and hold it down. It's an instant read. So the idea behind that is to kind of speed the process and add that extra layer of security on top of it. So let's talk a little bit about destination dispatch. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that term. It's a somewhat new technology in the United States. It originally gained popularity in Europe. So traditionally, if you walk up to a building and you walk into an elevator lobby, you typically push a call button, wait for the elevator to come down, and then once the elevator comes down, you're going to walk into the cab and you're going to select what floor you want to go to. You can select all floors if you want and just stop on every floor. Even if there's access control, you can have a bunch of people sit there and just get off on whatever floor somebody else called. Destination dispatch is a much more efficient modern design in the sense where you can go ahead and take your mobile credential or your credential for your access control. You swipe it either at a kiosk in the lobby, or if you have an added layer of security with the turnstile, you'll swipe your credential in advance. And when you do that, the integration with the access control system and the elevator system are going to talk to each other and say, hey, Joel is allowed to go on floors 5 and 6, but his home floor is 5, for example. So it'll call that elevator that's nearest to the ground floor and go ahead and send him privately up to his floor. So this is a way to help speed up and make elevator moving within a building a lot more efficient. The concept is pretty simple, but the integration is not. Titan, we've specialized in integrating with various different elevator companies, and we do that really, really well. We've been doing that for quite a few years now, and so that's something that we can absolutely help you with.
Nick, can I just ask you a question on that with regards to the elevators? Most of our condominiums, right, have some form or provision of whether they're using the actual fob or there's a technology inherent in it. Do most of the like the Schindlers, the Otis, do they come with that type of a technology and security function in it, or is that separate to where you guys are the integrators and put that software and that system in it?
Great question. So there's a few elevator companies that have attempted to work to get into that space and dabble into the access control world. It has not worked out well in their favor. There's a lot of incompatibility with access control systems. So they may have a kiosk that has a built-in reader, but it might not be compatible with the fobs or the system that you guys use in your building. So that's where we come in and we find out if we can't integrate directly with it, we find another way around it. We have solutions where we can integrate QR code readers for guest passes or standard readers that will be installed in conjunction and integrate with that elevator system. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Just another little example of how we've been helping our clients over the last few years. We've seen an increase in demand for duress alarm systems. We've deployed, permanent alarm buttons that are essentially monitored by a central station that if triggered, they'll call the police. So this is just an added layer of security for some of our clients, whether they want to put that in a lobby or in the management offices. Additional to wired duress buttons like you see in the image here, we can also deploy mobile wearable devices. So if somebody's just kind of doing the rounds within the building, they can actually have a wearable device that would also call police if there would be an emergency that they need additional assistance. Intercom systems, I'm sure you are all very familiar with these. Traditionally, it was all teleentry, but as technology has evolved, we've seen an increase in cloud-based video intercom systems. I'm showing a Butterfly unit here as an example, but we've partnered with just about every major manufacturer, and we have some that are really good fits for multifamily residential applications. Very cost effective to deploy, great scalability. The way these work is essentially they'll call directly to the residents or the tenants in the building, and then they'll have that one-way or even two-way video calls if they want to do that. So then the visitor can even have a two-way video call so they could see who they're calling, have that conversation, and if they are allowed to, then they'll be buzzed into that gate or that front door or elevator call, whatever it might be. Visitor management is in high demand, and as with a lot of technology that we've been discussing, cloud-based is kind of the wave of the future. So visitor management systems are slowly becoming the standard that are ways to allow residents and visitors to kind of talk to each other and integrate. Pre-registering visitors in the system is a great way to help speed the process. Issuing guest passes with the use of QR codes or mobile links to trigger access controlled doors or gates are very, very popular. This creates a more efficient visitor experience for everyone, not just the staff, not just the people that are trying to get in the property. It's just kind of a great overall experience. You can scan a driver's license with it, check name against a watch list. You can integrate with multiple systems such as the access control to provide remote access through the platform. These systems also can serve as a way to send mass notification. So if there's an event going on where they have maybe restricted parking, they can make an announcement to the community through that. Or if there's an emergency, it could be sent out by text message to everybody that's on the platform. The great thing is we can customize our VMS so that it's white labeled essentially. So you can put your private community name or the building name on the software. That way everybody, sees that it's Heron Bay or wherever it might be. It'll be like that specific platform for visitor management that allows everybody to streamline that visitor and guest experience. And finally, let's talk a little bit about video surveillance. It's no longer a luxury. It's really become a necessity in our current environment. Implementing high quality cameras with high definition resolution is critical, not only to deter crime, but it's also to invest crimes or violations, for example. Sometimes it's as simple as people aren't allowed to park here, or you're not allowed to jump the gate, for example, or you're not supposed to jump in the pool in the evening hours. So it used to be standard practice to install a camera and let the system run for 10 or 15 years. However, with technology evolving now and AI advancing so fast, you should really consider changing your systems or upgrading systems if they're over 10 years old, sometimes even if they're younger than that. We partner with some of the top manufacturers with cutting edge technology with best-in-class features such as AI. And talking a little bit about AI, some people might assume AI is something that's useful if you have a high security environment like an airport or a detention center or something like that. That's not quite true. AI has its place in almost any environment today. Here are a couple examples of where we could use AI, where I've actually successfully deployed AI cameras in a residential environment. We had a residential community in Miami that had a front gate and a rear gate. The rear gate was essentially just a private exit for the community. So there was really no entry in there. And 10-foot concrete wall, 12-foot gate, so not something that's easy to climb. But they had a couple instances where people in the evening hours climbed the gate, got into the property, started vandalizing vehicles, started breaking into homes, causing a obvious problem for the community. They had no cameras back there. They didn't have any infrastructure whatsoever. And although they had a guard at the main gate on the front side, he couldn't see the back, obviously. So I helped deploy cameras along the perimeter, and we deployed AI to monitor and look for people. What this did is it created alerts, similar to how Joel mentioned in that story about the golf course. The cameras were programmed to specifically look for people that were crossing a certain section and saying, if there's anybody detected, again, not a raccoon, a person, AI is able to determine the difference and classify those objects and send alerts to the mobile apps. We can also send notifications to property management, building security, so that they're aware that then they can easily find it. Aside from instant alerts, another benefit is if anybody's ever gone through a camera system and had to search through hours of video to look for an incident, this is a great way to help speed that process up and make your life much more easy. You can say, hey, I want to look for somebody with a red shirt, or I want to see any bicycle that was driven around my property yesterday. And you can deploy that algorithm for multiple camera views now. So if you're looking for somebody that stole a bike yesterday, you can say, search for bicycle, it'll find it. Search for somebody with a red hat, it'll find those people with a red hat. It takes your search time down to seconds versus looking through hours and hours of video. So these are just some of the examples of how AI and technology can help implement better security practices and create layers of security for your communities. And with that, I do want to finish off with one small detail. Titan is a member of NSI, that's a National Security Integrators organization. We're the top privately held integrators in their respective regions, and we are one of 11 integrators with the NSI membership, just to give you an example of what level we're playing at. And with that, I wrap it up. I do want to thank you all again for sitting with me and going through my presentation. Again, my name is Nick Moreau. I'm with Titan Security Group, Marksman Titan Security Group now. As we mentioned, we had that merger a few months ago. And I'll leave it up to you, James.
Great. That was great, Nick. Thanks so much. It really is, it's one of those things, and maybe it's probably the right time to just briefly talk about how our vendors and how us as a management firm become better stewards for our associations, whether you're condo or HOA. I think there's so much there that you and Joel have talked about that it almost gets a little confusing. Because at some point in time, you don't have to be an expert in security and access controls, but you get it because, whether you're in a condo or an HOA, if you've got, a manned gate, or if you've got a clubhouse, or if you have elevators, or if you have those types of components, they're all various aspects of how you have security in place or not. And I think for me is, one of the things that, and some of the questions have been coming in that we can get to, is a lot of the people on the webinar are asking for, how do I really tackle this? Because you can only get so much from a webinar, right? And so one of the things that I recommend, and this is for all of us on the webinar and for futures, really get the stakeholders together and have a workshop. So, for all of you that are living in associations right now, board members or not, or committee members, really a best practice is to get the stakeholders. So have the board, have your security vendor, have an integrator like a Titan, have your management firm. So have your general manager and a regional director there. And sometimes even invite your insurance carrier and your attorney. But when you drive all the stakeholders together, you can really come together with really good outcomes, which is, what is my current security provision that I have right now? Is it antiquated? Is it outdated? Is it in place? What are the risks? What are the availability of options, technology and other for the future to safety-proof security and access control and some of those things? And what's good about that is you bring and drive out all of that thought leadership in that workshop, but it's very specific to your association. It's not generalities. It's really custom built, for lack of a better word, to what you need for safety and security and access controls in your community. And then at least not only become better educated, but you get to really ask critical questions and frankly challenge what's out there to have the most optimal outcome and see those results. And then you'll know a little bit more about cost certainty. You know, do you have to retrofit or not? Is this something that is applicable to your type of community, your rules and regs, the type of um, you know access controls you have or don't have around the perimeter of your property, as Joel had mentioned at some of the properties that we have. So at the end of the day, it's really a great practice for budget preparation and for security and mitigating risk is to get everybody in that room and just have that session. If you don't do that, you're going to be really relying and incumbent upon a little bit of guesswork and just lacking the education that's required. So that's something that we always predicate and try to bring those people together. The other thing I'll touch upon is I think one of the things that you said um, is there's so many different types of provisions out there. The the boards, the associations, they don't have to know all the players in that space, right? I mean, like a Titan and a Marksman, you guys are going to be able to come to them and say, based upon the age of your system, retrofitting or not, based upon the signage, the lighting, the controls, all those things. Is it safe to say, and maybe this is a question for you, Joe, when you come into an association and they're interested in security, whatever that may mean, do you guys perform more like a security audit to take a look
Uh,
at all those areas where there's risk or there's gaps? Is that what you provide as an initial assessment?
100%. It's important. I think you may even want to look into Florida state statutes now that there was a law passed about that, you know, you have to have an assessment performed on your community. I don't know if it ever got passed, but it may be something you want to look into. And yes, Marksman Titan Security Group, we provide all our clients or potential clients as asked, or not even as asked, but as needed, an assessment of the property. It's literally it's critical for the security company for one, and the association, the management company, that an assessment is performed. We are going to present it to you. You know, it's really like taking the liability off the association, especially if you implement what is suggested in that assessment. So yes, to answer your question, we do perform an assessment and would be more than happy to assist anybody on this call with one.
Okay. And that maybe is part of that workshop we're mentioning is when you bring everybody together. These are things that can drive out some type of an audit assessment so you actually know what you have because it can get, as we've seen, very complex. And some of these things there might be it might be prohibitive, it might be rules and regs. And maybe that's a question. And if we don't have the answers between you, Joel, and you, Nick, maybe it's something that the association can seek with their attorney. But I was always curious, and I don't know the answer, but I know from in the past, if you have signage, if you have security, sometimes there's legalities on do you have to post the signage that you're on camera or not? And so I don't know if that's Florida law or statute law, but some of those things I think also are coming up with the questions on what must you have and what don't you have and what is in between.
So the answer to that, with public settings, there is no, it's public settings and businesses, cameras, there are no laws governing what those cameras do. Okay, now here's where the questionable part. In a private setting, there's some statutes. I answered one of the questions for someone on there and I gave them the statutes to look it up. Is that there are more expectations in privacy when you're in a private setting. Remember, most homeowners associations, condominiums, that's private property, not public property. So that's something you may want to address with your attorney. You know, what's the liability? I could give you an example. Years ago, people were putting cameras by pool areas. I'm saying the camera and had signs that the camera is under video surveillance. Guess what happened when someone drowned in the pool? Right? Nobody was watching those cameras. Nobody had it. The association was liable and was sued and was held liable for not monitoring those systems. So, I mean, there are, like I said, in public settings, you could get away, but in the private settings, you have to be careful in what you're monitoring because if something does happen, it goes with anything. That's why we perform an assessment, James. improper lighting, the association could be held liable for that. Okay, if you have a known area that people are entering through the property and you don't take steps to correct it, and someone gets assaulted by that, which the association is aware of, you are once again held liable for it. So the assessment is critical for, not only the safety of your residents and the safety of your property, but for liability reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think just some of the common practice when in association management, when we're previewing our own properties and walking the property and looking at elements of exposure or risk. Sometimes it's just as simple as, like you mentioned, Joe, lighting. Like, forget about all the other important intricacies of access control and security, but sometimes as simple as just having spotlights so that it's a detractant or deterrent. Some of those simple things that aren't practiced on at an association level.
Like I said, I don't want to age myself, but I've been doing this since 1989. So I basically knew what I was doing, but you are always learning, and you learn a lot through performing these assessments and what you need to do to protect an association of commercial real estate, whatever it is, what you could do legally, and what you need to do as a security provider and a management company and association to protect the assets and the well-being of your people. So
Is there, and Nick, maybe from a systems technology integration standpoint, is there a almost like a repository or a place where, whether it comes from your company or others that, allow the consumer to get educated on, like the CAI for association management? Is there groups and departments and types of aspects with related to security and implementation and technology that they can go to get resources and information and get up to speed? Is there anything that we can leave with our registrants or send to them?
Yeah, I'll look at sending something. Off the top of my head, I can't think of what it is called right now. I mean, I stay in touch with the industry just because I'm in the industry and I attend trade shows and partner, and I'm actively being trained by the top manufacturers on an ongoing basis to see what's new because it's ever evolving. So but there are online resources that we can share with you guys for that.
Yeah, I think we can have that as some actionable items as to help. We always get more questions that are coming in after the webinar's over, and we'll be reaching out to those of you that are listening and attending to any questions that we didn't get to that we can. But I think the other item is for those associations that want to enhance and elevate their security provisions, some of their questions are going to be cost related, like what do I have to actually redo or implement or integrate versus, as you mentioned, Nick, some of it's just if it's cloud-based and here's an app, that's very simple and straightforward. But what are those types of more integration things when you have to come into existing? And I'll give you an example. For like package management, some of the software that's out there for our associations, it's actually in the software, right? So if you look at something like, and I'm not sure if you're familiar specifically, Nick, with Building Link.
Mhm.
So, Building Link will have some of those pieces of access control or visitor registration or package management. And some of those things might be able to handle or accommodate some of the things we're
Right.
mentioning versus maybe they don't do that integration or functionality that they require. And you might have to have something in addition to that. So I think one of the things
Sure.
that's
And
good.
that's what we can help figure that out and assess that.
Okay. That's what I kind of drive at with these workshops is really bringing in the stakeholders and again, in a constructive fashion, just challenging everything that you have. And once you become educated and you know what the options are and what the costs are, you can properly plan as a community how to, mitigate that risk and how to safety check everything. Those are the things that we're really trying to drive that thought leadership with partners like yourself. Guys, we're a few minutes away from buttoning up here, and I know Aileen's giving me a cue about where you can go. So, Aileen, do you want to just give them a reminder of kind of the links and the things we have here to finish up?
Yes, of course, we're at the 5-minute mark. Thank you everyone for attending. The recording of this webinar will be available at castlegroup.com, where you'll find all of our previously recorded webinars and resources. Don't forget to follow us on socials. We have LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And thank you to our partners here, Marksman Security and Titan, Joe Leffler and Nick Morat. Their contact information is on the screen. If you'd like to reach out to them separately, you can do that as well. Okay, thank you all for joining us today and for all the insightful information.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Nick and Joel. Really appreciate this. These are important times, important things, right? It's about the use of AI, protecting the community and having, feeling safe in your community, and certain things you can, safety proof, and certain things you can't. You still have to have people that are behaving and doing the right thing. But these are all really, really great topics and items that I believe, our homeowners, our residents want to get better educated at, and having partners like Marksman and Titan are really great to bring that thought leadership and value. So again, thank you both, Joel and Nick, for the time. We'll do it again soon.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you, James and Eileen. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great day and happy holidays to everyone.
Likewise.
Thanks.